The sound of soil hitting a coffin echoed through the silent cemetery as a tired man knelt alone before a freshly carved grave, his hands trembling not from the cold but from the weight of a past that refused to stay buried, and in that exact moment, as the sky hung low and gray, a presence stopped behind him, heavy with authority and wealth, carrying a truth that would shatter both their worlds forever. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and unseen sacrifices that change lives, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, subscribe to the channel for more real and emotional stories, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because this story begins exactly where most stories end. Ethan Carter had not planned to stay long at the cemetery that day, but grief has its own clock, and it never listens to reason. He was a single father, worn down by years of exhaustion, with shoulders bent not by age but by responsibility, kneeling at the grave of a woman who had once been the center of his entire universe. The grass was still raw and uneven, the headstone newly placed, and his small daughter Lily waited at the edge of the path, clutching a faded stuffed rabbit and watching her father with eyes far too old for her 6 years of life. Ethan had raised her alone since she was 2, after her mother disappeared from their lives without explanation, leaving behind only silence and unanswered questions. He worked nights as a warehouse supervisor, took extra shifts whenever possible, and lived in a cramped apartment where love filled every corner even when money could not. The woman in the grave was named Claire Bennett, the one person who had ever truly helped him survive the darkest chapter of his life, and the secret of who she really was had followed him like a shadow. Years earlier, Ethan had met Claire at a public hospital where Lily had been rushed in with a severe infection. Ethan had been broke, terrified, and on the edge of losing everything, but Claire had appeared like a quiet miracle, handling paperwork, calming doctors, and paying bills without ever asking for recognition. She had said little, offered only kindness, and slowly became a part of their lives, helping with Lily, encouraging Ethan to believe he was more than his failures. When illness took Claire away, it took Ethan's last anchor with it, and now he knelt there, whispering apologies to the ground for not having more to offer her in return. Behind him stood Victoria Hale, a billionaire known across the country for her sharp mind, cold elegance, and the global empire she had built from nothing. She wore black tailored clothing that cost more than Ethan's yearly rent, but her face was stripped of arrogance, pale and shaken as she stared at the name on the headstone. Claire Bennett had been legally married to her for 7 years, the love of her life, the one person who had softened her ruthless world. Claire had vanished years ago after a devastating argument, leaving behind divorce papers that were never signed and a silence that Victoria had mistaken for betrayal. She had searched, hired investigators, traveled continents, and finally received news only weeks earlier that Claire had died under another name, living an entirely different life. As Victoria stood there, watching a broken man kneel where she believed she belonged, confusion and jealousy burned inside her, but something else stirred too, something heavier. Ethan did not look like a manipulator or a gold digger, he looked like a man who had been fighting the world alone and losing. Lily stepped closer, holding Ethan's arm, and Victoria saw in that child a reflection of the family she and Claire had once dreamed of but never had the chance to build. The realization hit her slowly and painfully that Claire had not abandoned her out of cruelty, but out of sacrifice. The truth unfolded not through confrontation but through observation and time. Victoria stayed, unnoticed at first, watching Ethan struggle through the days after the funeral. She saw him sell his old car to pay rent, skip meals so Lily could eat, and sit up late at night filling out job applications that never replied. She followed quietly, learning that Claire had entered Ethan's life when he was drowning in debt and despair, choosing to give away her wealth anonymously, choosing to live simply, choosing to be useful rather than powerful. Claire had been terminally ill when she met Ethan, knowing her time was limited, and she had chosen to spend it giving Lily a future and Ethan a chance to stand again, rather than returning to a life of luxury filled with regret. Victoria's world, built on control and numbers, began to crack under the weight of that realization. She remembered the softer version of Claire, the one who believed money meant nothing without purpose, and she understood too late that the woman she loved had not betrayed her, but trusted her strength enough to walk away without explanation. Slowly, Victoria stepped into Ethan's life, first as an anonymous donor to Lily's school, then as an investor who reopened the warehouse Ethan worked at when it faced closure, and finally as a presence that could no longer remain hidden. Ethan's suspicion turned into disbelief as doors began opening around him, opportunities appearing where none had existed. He did not know why fortune had suddenly favored him, but he honored it by working harder, by staying honest, by teaching Lily gratitude instead of entitlement. When Victoria finally revealed who she was and why Claire had truly left, Ethan felt anger, guilt, and relief crash together. He realized the woman he had loved like family had carried 2 lives inside her, and in both, she had chosen love over comfort. The transformation was not instant or easy. Trust had to be built, grief had to be shared, and pain had to be acknowledged without blame. Victoria did not try to replace Claire in Ethan's life, nor did she attempt to buy affection. Instead, she used her resources to create stability while allowing Ethan to retain dignity. Lily, innocent and open-hearted, became the bridge between them, reminding both adults that love multiplied when shared instead of divided. Years passed, and the grave that once symbolized loss became a place of reflection rather than sorrow. Ethan stood taller, now running a successful logistics company that employed dozens of struggling parents. Lily grew into a confident young girl who spoke often about kindness and legacy. Victoria, once feared and distant, reshaped her empire to focus on hospitals, education, and second-chance programs, guided by the quiet lessons Claire had left behind. As this story nears its end, if you feel even a small ache in your chest, if this journey of sacrifice, forgiveness, and unexpected family has touched your heart, please take a moment now to like the video, share it with someone who believes in humanity, and stay connected to the channel for more stories that remind us who we can be. And just before the ending, we have a special request for you to comment below and tell us what this story made you feel, because your words keep these stories alive. On a calm afternoon years later, Ethan, Lily, and Victoria stood together at the same grave, not as strangers bound by tragedy, but as a family formed by truth and compassion. The wind moved gently through the trees, and in that quiet moment, it became clear that love never truly disappears, it simply changes form, waiting for the right hearts to recognize it.